Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to opening day of Major League Baseball. It has been a weird run up to this season with the labor dispute between the owners and the players. Thankfully, that was resolved. The shortened spring training was kind of tough. My wife and I had tickets to go to Fort Myers and watch the Red Sox play 2 weekends ago. Or a week ago rather, and we just weren't able to do it because we weren't sure if they were going to resolve their things in time. So we ended up not going. But I'm glad there's baseball. I'm glad it starts today. I have my annual ritual of taking a day off from work to watch the opening day games. Unfortunately, the Red Sox and Yankees got pushed to tomorrow, so I'll have to redo it tomorrow, but that's okay. A good day of baseball is never a bad day. So today I want to talk about how I became a Red Sox fan and why baseball has been such an important piece of my life. I think I can tie it all back to the fact that my late dad was a baseball fan. We didn't have a lot in common, being a man of that particular era. We're talking about me growing up in the 70s, and my dad being a guy, from that era, and so you didn't have a whole lot in common with your dad, but at least I didn't. But baseball was one. Whenever there was a game on, he wanted to watch it, and he'd ask me to sit with him, and we'd watch the game. So my love of baseball kind of started young. I have three older brothers, John, Carlos, and Joe, who were not and still aren't baseball guys. A couple of years ago, before the pandemic, my brothers agreed to go on a road trip with me because the Red Sox were playing the Cubs in spring training in Arizona. So we drove, and they watched it. I think it was just because we wanted a shared experience as brothers to go and enjoy that. But they were never fans, so it wasn't because my brothers pushed me to that. It was really my dad. But really, in addition to that, it was my friends, my childhood friends, the guys I called the Porche Boys. That's the name of the street we grew up on. And to my right, the Luna brothers were Mario, Ruben, and Jaime. Jaime was a little younger. It was more Mario and Ruben. We're still in touch today. We're still close today. There's a sense of brotherhood between us. We've been through a lot of things together. And next door to them were the Villegas brothers, Frank, Joe, who we call Bub to this day, or Bubba, and George. George was a great baseball player when he was a kid, but he ended up going to college on a basketball scholarship. But those guys and I, when we were kids, were just diehard fans of the Cincinnati Reds, the Big Red Machine. You have to keep in mind that in those days there was no cable TV the way it is today. We were fortunate if we got a game or two a week, and that was when the advent of cable. And for us, cable TV was that we got stations from LA. So there was KTLA, who would feed us Dodgers games. But for whatever reason, none of us became Dodgers fans. And we gravitated towards the Cincinnati Reds with that awesome Hall of Fame filled lineup, and watching them and enjoying them, particularly beating the Dodgers and having those World Series appearances, and then ultimately the World Series wins against the Red Sox and then the Yankees. So we loved them. I particularly loved Johnny Bench and Pete Rose. Those were my guys. Charlie Hustle and Johnny Bench. My brother Carlos bought me a Johnny Bench catcher's mitt when I was a kid, not knowing that I'd end up being a catcher for many years in high school, and then beyond that when I really learned to play. So it was really a tie-in. I loved the way they played, and we just talked about them every day. We'd read the newspaper, and we'd pull out the box scores, and we'd watch, and we would play every single day out in the street with a tennis ball and a balsa wood bat because we didn't want to break any windows, right? So we'd play in the street. It was an everyday thing. We loved it. I remember we talked baseball all the time. It was all about that. I remember when the Bad News Bears came out in the mid '70s. Gosh, we were so excited about that. You know, if you fast forward and after I had my two daughters, and during their time, the movie The Sandlot came out, and The Sandlot was very reminiscent to me of my childhood, with my friends on the street that I grew up playing. It not only kept us busy and helped us develop our athleticism and our teamwork and stuff like that, but it really created a bond, a galvanization of us as friends that lasts to this day. In cases, a couple of cases, 50 plus years. Not too many people can claim that, right? That they have friends that they've been friends with for this long. We've had our ups and downs, times in our lives where we've been not there because life happens, but nonetheless, it all circles back to that. And we have a Facebook chat together, and we communicate pretty regularly. And so, from that, being a Cincinnati Reds fan, that lasted. However, something happened to me that was different that happened to my friends, because most of them are still, well, not most of them, Bub and Mario are still Reds fans. Mario's brother Ruben, who actually lived in New York City for some time, became a Yankees fan. He's a diehard Yankees fan. I still love him. And their brother Jimmy is a Dodgers fan. And I'm not sure what Georgie's affiliation is, but he's not a big baseball guy. But I became a Red Sox fan. In the World Series games of 1975, when the Reds ended up beating the Red Sox, I was still a diehard Reds fan. But I watched how fervent those fans were. I watched how on TV how crushing it was to them, and how they elated when Carlton Fisk, did the home run where he was doing the whole, come on, stay fair kind of thing. And it did, watching that, and Carl Yastrzemski. And as I grew a little older, I became more of a fan of the Red Sox. And when they were on TV a little bit more, as TV developed and started showing more baseball, I really got into the Red Sox. And it was it's not like I got in because they were winning World Series. They weren't. There was a long, for me, eternal dry spell of no championships. But still, I stuck by them. I went through the Roger Clemens era, the end of the Carl Yastrzemski, Carlton Fisk era, Fred Lynn, Dwight Evans and Jim Rice and all that group, and then transitioned into the Roger Clemens era, the Mo Vaughn era, the Nomar era. And I really thought, well, maybe with Nomar they can put it together. I especially like the fact that Nomar's parents were of Mexican descent, and for all of you that don't know, Nomar is Ramon spelled backwards. That was his dad. That is his dad's name. So it was a really cool transition in the history of it. And I started to read a little bit about the Red Sox, and of course, Ted Williams, I think, is still the greatest Red Sox player of all time. Not that I ever got to watch him, but just reading about him. When I was in high school, I bought a hitting book at a thrift store, a book on hitting. That was Charlie Lau's book and Ted Williams. And so it actually helped. It actually helped reading that book, and it helped me become a little bit better hitter. But I read up on Ted Williams and his history. And Ted Williams grew up in San Diego, but something that many people don't know is that Ted Williams' mom is from El Paso, where I'm from. And so Ted Williams is half Hispanic. And, he has an illustrious career, not only as a player, but he was also a World War II hero, flying fighter planes. And, he missed a big chunk of his career, was never able to win a World Series with the Red Sox as a player or as a manager. But he was a great player. Teddy Baseball, the Splendid Splinter, whatever you want to call him, he was just great. He was great at everything he did on the field. So I really became kind of enamored with his story. His mom's last name is Venzor here in El Paso. His uncles were from here. They're the ones that kind of taught him how to play baseball. And then he became one of the greatest players of all time. So that resonated with me. And I find myself gravitating towards athletes that are of Mexican descent. Yeah, it's a little personal pride in that, right? And on top of that, I ended up wearing his number 9, throughout my baseball and softball career. that spanned many decades. Not many decades, many years, like 3 decades, that I still played actively. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that and wearing that number 9 in honor of Ted Williams. And that's how I became a Red Sox fan. So obviously, when you become a Red Sox fan, you become kind of a natural enemy of the Yankees. I think it's kind of easy to do that, not just as a Red Sox fan, but other fans, because they have unmatched success as a franchise. They won't let you forget. They have 27 World Series, but how many do they have in the 2000s in recent memory, right? So I'm pretty happy about that. I still remember, watching the game with my daughters and watching that first World Series win and breaking the curse of the Bambino. It was a big deal watching all of that happen. And, the Cowboy Up team was a lot of fun to watch. And you look back and really, other than Manny and Big Papi, most of the other guys were good, serviceable players, but they were sure as heck fun to watch. And I enjoyed that a great deal. And then as the teams progress, watching Dustin Pedroia and Jason Varitek and Papi still stay with them. And even the iteration of their last World Series champ in 2018, which I actually got to watch a World Series game in Los Angeles. I was there for the 18-inning game with my wife, who is a Dodgers fan. I still love her. But her second favorite team is the Red Sox, and our good friend Will was able to find someone that was willing to sell us their ticket from his group of season ticket friends. So we went and watched the World Series. I mean, unfortunate for me, they didn't win that game, but it was a historic game that was unmatched. I don't think there's ever been a game that long in the World Series, so it was a lot of fun to be there. I remember they stopped selling beer, they stopped selling food, they ran out of food. I think sometime around the 17th, 18th inning, they said, hey, there's beer again and there's hot dogs again. So my wife took off to buy more beer. While she was gone, Muncie hit the jack to win the game. Unfortunately, I was the only Red Sox fan sitting in that row, and my wife was telling me, hey, you got to be chill, man. Those people in LA are crazy. We don't want any trouble because you're talking smack about the game. And I wasn't, so I was a little subdued. I understood my surroundings. I didn't want any trouble. But I really got to enjoy the game. It was a game for the ages. It was great to watch. And thankfully, the Red Sox ended up winning that game with a current iteration, which includes Xander and Rafael Devers and J.D. Martinez, and that group was a lot of fun. It was painful for me to watch Mookie become a Dodger because he was part of that winning team, and the Red Sox just never locked him up in a contract, but he was still part of that team, and he'll forever be a Red Sox to me. So that is how I became a Red Sox fan, and why I have my personal tradition. I sit here in my house by myself. My wife goes to work, and I make myself a hot dog or a bratwurst and have a cold beer, and I watch baseball. And I remember my good times with my friends growing up and getting all sunburned and putting Vaseline on our gloves and just enjoying it. Hitting baseballs onto the flat roof of my neighbor. Their last name is Caballero. To the point where we'd run out of baseballs, and we'd have to figure out a way to get on their roof to get tennis balls to play. Or if somebody or their family was going to Kmart or one of the stores, say, hey man, ask your parents if they'll buy us a can of baseballs, tennis balls. Things like that will forever be part of my culture, my memories, my history of why baseball is so important. I played baseball in high school, and I was okay, I guess, but I really didn't become a pretty decent player until I got older and I played with men. When I was 18 or 19, I started playing in Mexico, and I played with some of the older guys that really taught me how to play, that I wish I had that knowledge when I was a younger guy to play, because of course, you grow up and you want to be the next Johnny Bench, you want to be the next Carlton Fisk or the next Pete Rose, and that never materialized. Not that I have any regrets about that. I thoroughly enjoyed the way my life has worked out, but playing with older guys that understood the game, really gave you a lot of inside knowledge, helped me become a better player and understand the game. You know, after I was a third baseman for a long time, and then I became a catcher. And that not only changed the game for me, it changed my life a little bit. You know, they call the gear the catchers wear the tools of ignorance, and you have to be a little crazy, a little kooky to catch. You're in a squat the entire time. You know, it's hot, the gear's heavy, and you're still expected to hit. I remember early on, a few times, several times, you know, late in the game, I'd be up to bat and my legs would be kind of shaky, you know, because they weren't accustomed to being in that bend for so long. But you're in full control of the game. You have the best seat. You watch everybody. If you have a good memory, you watch their feet, you watch your hands. You know, last time he was late on a fastball, or he was, you know, he wasn't quick on the trigger with a curveball, and I saw his knee buckles, or his hands are in too tight, so he can bust them inside, or he's too far away from the plate, so we can hit him on the outside. It is a constant game. And those of you that have played, I have many friends that have played the game and here will understand what it's like. And many of you are pitchers. We're pitchers. Understand what it's like to have a good catcher back there, someone you can rely on that you know is going to be blocking the ball for you and getting things back to you and watching your runners and reminding you, hey, man, you're tipping your pitches, or hey, your release point's too high, or hey, man, you're not using your legs enough, or you're tired. If you are, man, we need to make a change because it's a close game. All of that, you know, and they're all little lessons in life that teach you how to communicate. They teach you how to be in difficult situations. They teach you how to lose. They teach you how to win. And all of those experiences have carried forward in my life and helped me be a good communicator. You know, I still remember my old man would get mad because I'd call out how many outs there were. He thought I was being a clown. I was like, no, Dad, I mean, I'm just reminding everybody. It's really easy to forget how many strikes there are, how many outs there are, because it really impacts how you feel, where you stand. It impacts how you bat. If you're batting and you've got 2 strikes on you, you know, I know a lot of guys that will choke on their bat and just want to make contact, put the ball in play and see what happens, you know, make something happen. And others that are unaware, you know, they're down 0-2 and they're taking big looping swings, and I'm throwing you a fastball inside. You're never going to catch. You're not going to catch up to it. It's not going to happen. So, you know, there are T-shirts that have been printed that say "Baseball is life." I'm not saying it is, but it's a lot like life, a lot. And even though it's a game, it's a part of life for those of us that have played it, loved it, watched it, enjoyed it. You know, you don't have to have been a player to love baseball. You can just love it. And even though I don't think it's America's pastime anymore. I think the NFL has surpassed it. It's still very special to me. And so today I'll enjoy a hot dog. I'll have a beer. I'll have it in honor of all of those that I've crossed paths with as teammates, as opponents, and as my friends. So play ball.